Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's excellent to have you here as always, and thank you for watching. As you can see, we're out here on the range today in a beautiful 90-degree day here in the state of Ohio. And today we're going to be discussing why, if God is into guns, why his rifle is chambered in .300 Blackout. I brought out a relatively impressive amount of kit to make my case here today. So we're going to go ahead and get to it so this thing isn't an hour long. The thing for me that really makes .300 Blackout really interesting and a lot of fun is its versatility. There's a lot of different loadings available out there on the market for it. It wasn't that way at its inception. Now that it's been out on the market for some time, it's filled out quite a bit. And today for this demonstration, we're going to be shooting two different loadings. First, we have Fiocchi 150 grain FMJ boat tail. And the second one is going to be a 220 grain hollow point boat tail, and that's a Sierra Match King. And first off, I'm just going to shoot them on a piece of paper down there. 3 supers followed by 3 subs. All right, let's go take a look. The 150 grain and the subs, the 220 grain, landing right here. Now at 100. Supers up here at 100, subs down here. Back at the 250 yard, I'm gonna stand with a rest, and I just walked up that, I walked the whole distance, so my heart rate's up. We're gonna see what we can do. We're gonna lose the subs because the distance is just too great, and we're gonna switch over to steel. Now, you guys saw it better than I did because you guys had a closer camera than I did, but this is the size of steel that we're talking. And then up there on top of that hill is the point at which we shot from. We're gonna see if we can get this to match my shirt. I think that might be it, boys and girls. So there is a decent representation of the targeting capabilities of .300 Blackout. Now, reasonably speaking, with some magnification, I'm probably going to push those 150 grain loads out farther, but to be honest, with the red dot, and I can't really see anymore. So that's a thing. The rounds are also punching decently hard at that distance. So we're going to say point of aim, point of impact, 250 yards. We're going to get into how to set up your gun to do this particular thing here in a few minutes. But first I want to do some direct comparisons between .300 Blackout and some other calibers. And to start that off, what would a video be without a 9mm comparison? And for that, we're going to go to our sponsor for today's video, Global Ordnance. Global is an importer and purveyor of international sporting goods. Man, you see how I did that? They don't sound like Lord of War at all. Google friendly. We have covered some of their imports previously, but today we're having a look at the Rex Delta Gen 2. This is a Slovenian manufactured full-size handgun that doesn't feel like a full-size handgun. The polyframe is low profile enough that you could mistake it for a single stack, even though it holds 17 rounds. This thing comes customizable and is surprisingly competitive with mainstream offerings in the same class. It comes packed with a variety of features that we simply don't have time to cover in today's video, including optics-ready capability.
Huh. Nice little cleaning kit surprise.
Dude, did you put that in your nose? But if you want to see more than this bird's eye view of the Rex Delta, be sure to let me know in the comments section down below. And thank you to Global Ordnance for making these available to the American consumer. So first up, let's get an idea of what those two loadings of .300 Blackout are doing out of this gun. 5 shots of 150 grain. We're going to see if we can hit some steel. It's a swinging. Swinging pretty hard. .220 grain. So at 220 grains and 870 feet per second, that reminds me a lot of 45 ACP. There's a couple problems with 45 ACP though. First off, it's 45 ACP. First, a positive. We'll go with a positive, which is you don't have to look for downloadings when shooting suppressed with 45 ACP because almost all 45 ACP, except for the specialty loads, are going to be subsonic out the box. Problem with 45 ACP is that its BC is terrible. The bullet was designed over 100 years ago. The 300 Blackout, by contrast, does not have this problem. It uses a 308 projectile, which, up until we started doing research into the 6mm area, was the gold standard for accuracy. And basically what that means is with a better BC, that bullet is not going to decelerate nearly as fast as, say, the 45 ACP is going to, so you're going to have a flatter trajectory. So let's flip over to those 150 grains. 150 grains sounds a lot like a 308 to me. That's actually a very common loading. 147, 150 grains, something like that. Those are going to be on your lighter end of your 308 Winchester loadings, or 7.62 by 51 if you're using the NATO designation. But right around in there. The only difference is a 308 is going to be a full-powered rifle cartridge. We're talking about intermediate rifle cartridges here, and 150 grains is a little bit heavy for a 7.62 by 39, but there are some lighter loadings of 300 Blackout down to the 110s I've seen. Those are like usually some copper spuns or something like that. But a very common loading of 300 Blackout is the 125 range, which is pretty much spot on for a 7.62 by 39 round. So accounting for the extra 20% on the projectile mass, and I probably should have also used a short-barreled AK to do this, but we'll get to that here in a second. We do have data for a 125 grain 300 Blackout loading, which is a very common loading from Fiocchi. It's relatively comparable out of a comparable barrel length. And you know, just for the heck of it, we have to look at a short-barreled 308 because we're going to use it as a comparison here in just a second. Yuck. We knew that we were going to get more out of the full-powered rifle cartridge than we were going to get out of an intermediate rifle cartridge. Like, we've covered this already. However, that's a 12.5-inch gun. For that velocity, that's excellent out of a 308. They're doing a good job over there at CMMG. But if you look at the footprint of that gun in comparison with, say, this guy right here, you basically get the can for the length of that gun as far as the footprint is concerned. Also, if we look at the mass of the two guns, you get all of this stuff. Big, bulky optic, backup iron sights that are made of metal, a laser aiming device that is left on, which is now going to be dead, whatever, and a can and vertical grip, all for the weight of that short barrel 308 without anything on it. So everything is a trade-off, and it really depends what you're trading for on that. Let's move to the AK. Now, I specifically picked this AK to use for this demonstration, not because of the barrel length, but because it's lighter than that 300 Blackout gun. Now, on the AK, you trade a lot of quality of life stuff, like the straight press magazines, last round bolt hold open. You also can't readily add optics, vertical grips, laser modules, all that sort of stuff to this thing. Once you start doing that, it's going to be heavier. And somebody is going to say, "No, you can get a gun that does all that." It's going to be heavier, almost guaranteed. The other thing I would say is what does the price point on an AK-47 type rifle that's equipped with those kind of ergonomic upgrades? You can get most of what you see here that's bolted to this rifle for the base cost of one of those AKs. So onto the subs. The 45 ACP. Well, even though this gun, this Glock 21, with this can on the end of it, weighs in at a fraction. Generally speaking, 45 ACP guns are goofy. There's going to be somebody that says, well, 45 guns aren't all goofy. Really? Really? I rest my case. Also, 45 cans, generally speaking, suck. Now, that's a discussion for another day. Basically, if you aren't tracking, the true utility of 300 Blackout is to be able to swiftly move from the supers to the subsonics with the ease of a mag change. So here's how to do it. Now, that's a 10-inch barrel on that rifle, and I'm going to zero with those supersonics. Make sure the gun is shooting straight with the supersonics. Make sure the can is on. And I'm going to use, and again, depending on the grain weight, but with the 150 grains, I like a hybrid zero of about 40 yards. That's going to give me that pattern that you saw in today's video between the two loadings. But then after I get the gun zeroed with the supersonics, I'm going to switch over to the subsonics and gas the rifle. I prefer an H2 buffer. And what that is, it's almost like when you were in school, you played with the microscopes. You had a coarse adjust and a fine adjust. Coarse adjust got you close. The fine adjust dials you right in. The coarse adjust on an AR is going to be your buffer, and the fine adjust is going to be your gas setting at the front. Now you might say, Kurt, that's too complicated. I don't really want to be messing with that stuff. That's another part to break. That's fine. You can probably get away without it. The only thing that I'm going to say is you're probably going to lose some of the functionality. You might have some malfunctions with the subsonics if it's running the supers really well. You might also throw the can on and the supers may overgas the rifle. It really just depends on your individual setup. That's why I suggest that the 2 parts of adjustment, the 2 points of adjustment, is being able to kind of move that in. Your barrel length's going to matter. That can, though, is a very, very important part of the equation because remember, that increases your dwell time. That increases the post-gas length, and it's a very important characteristic of using 300 Blackout is being able to gas that rifle for the right amount of time. So that's all I've got on 300 Blackout, God's caliber. I know that I'm biased, guys. I really like 300 Blackout. I shoot a lot of it. Probably rivaled only in utility in my day-to-day by 22. It's great for small game, as well as I know in states that don't have corrupt game regulations, like the state of Ohio, that people use it to take white-tailed deer all the time. So it is definitely a cartridge that should be on your radar. You may or may not desire to have the capability to do all that in one gun. For me personally, though, I like my guns to do as much crap as possible, as evidenced by all the bull crap mounted onto this gun. Anyway, if you liked today's video, please consider leaving a comment in the comment section down below. It does help out with the algorithm. If you are shy and you don't want to leave a comment, I understand. Please push one of those other buttons on the screen. Perhaps the share button would help out quite a bit. And if you feel so inclined, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon and Subscribestar, and you'll see some people on screen that are doing that right now.